the flexibility of reality. Welcome, my friends, to another live video. This is Troy Stone King. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. The title of this episode is The Flexibility of Reality. And I got to tell you, I was hesitant to even open up this topic because it's taken me the last several years to really start to understand this concept. And I still have challenges actually applying it in my life. But it's something that I've learned, and I think that a limited number of people, a fairly small percentage, in my opinion, of people really have gotten this concept and apply it to their lives. And I could probably spend an hour on this or even write a small book about this topic. But I'm going to do my best here in just a few minutes to get you to a basic understanding of the concept of the flexibility of reality. I believe that we've been taught or we've absorbed the idea that reality is static. We learn that what we see in our lives is what is, quote, real. And reality is just what it is. It's something that is, reality is just something's there. It just exists. Reality simply is. In other words, the world around you, your place in life, these things are that are real, and they're the life you get to live. But let's be clear. Your reality is what you perceive, how you interpret it, what is happening in and around you. What you perceive, your reality is what you perceive, how you interpret it, and what is happening in and around you. Now, I want you to get those four terms. What you perceive, interpret, in and around. Perceive, interpret, in and around. Perceive or perception is what you notice, what you pay attention to, where you focus, what you perceive. So you see things, you smell things, you taste things, you hear things, what you perceive. So what you notice, pay attention to, where you focus. The second one is interpret. Interpret is what you believe to be true. What you believe to be true, and what you see as possible. And of course, interpret is tied directly to perceive. When I perceive something, then I interpret it in some way based on my past experience. The third one is in. In other words, inside of you. In means your thoughts, your feelings, your attitudes. And the fourth is around. Around is what are other people doing and what's happening in the outside world. And your reality then, your reality is what you perceive and how you interpret what is happening in and around you. Now that perceive, interpret, in, and around, you have direct control over the first three. You have direct control of how you perceive things or what you perceive. You have direct control of how you interpret things. You have direct control of what's happening inside of you in many cases. And you have indirect control around what's happening in the outside. Now, not complete, but you have some indirect control about the outside. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, I worked in a job, and my boss there was an extreme micromanager. I mean, so bad. Such a terrible micromanager. He was always up in my business about every single little detail, wouldn't leave anything alone, didn't trust me at all to do my job, which, by the way, I thought I was pretty good at. And it drove me almost crazy. Now, this was a long time ago, so nobody who's watching this video probably even know, well, some of you might know that person, but it was literally decades ago, so don't worry about that. But here's the deal. Remember, reality is those four aspects. what I perceive, how I interpret it, what's going on inside of me, and what's going on around me. So my perception was this person was a micromanager. But his perception might have been, you know what, I'm just being helpful here. Or another person who worked on the same team, their perception might have been, you know what, he just wants to help out. He just wants to be involved. And my interpretation of his micromanaging was he didn't trust me. But maybe from his point of view, his interpretation was, I just like to be involved in the aspects of the things that fall in my area of responsibility. And of course, what was happening in me, I was annoyed. So very annoyed. You see, those four aspects were my reality. He was doing something, and I perceived it, I interpreted it, and I had feelings related to it. And what did I do? I changed jobs after a period of time. I took a new job at a different place. Here is where we miss a critical point. When I changed jobs, I changed my reality. I changed all four aspects of my reality. I had new things to perceive, a different environment, working with different people, some different responsibilities. I had a new interpretation. I enjoyed what I was doing. I felt differently about my responsibilities. And of course, what was happening around me had changed. When I changed jobs, I changed my reality. All right, here is a very major point, and where most of us miss. We don't see these, quote, normal changes as a change in reality. We think changing jobs is just changing jobs. But changing a job completely redefines your reality. When you do something different, like changing jobs or starting a business, your reality changes. You have different things to perceive. You get different interpretations. You get different feelings about them. And of course, the outside world around you, your environment, changes when you do something like changing jobs. What we miss is it's not just a job change. It's a change in reality. And you're like, well, why does that matter? Here's why it matters. Because if we don't see something like a job change as a change in reality, then we don't understand that much greater changes in reality are within our grasp. We can change so much more when we understand that we have some control over our reality. Let me give an example. A little over 100 years ago, a couple bicycle repairmen started putting together spare parts, created an airplane, and that changed my reality because now I can fly places in a very short period of time. For most of you, it changed your reality because you can fly places in a very short period of time. Before those two guys put together the first airplane, nobody had ever flown. No one had ever gone fast in the sky. No one could get 300, 400, 500, 1,000 miles in just a few hours. You see, they made a change in their reality that affected everyone else's. You have that same ability to affect your own reality. The reason I called this episode The Flexibility of Reality is because reality is flexible. Now, not in a red is green and green is red or 1 + 1 = 3 way, but in how you live your life, how you make changes to your life. Your reality is unbelievably flexible, but you've got to see it that way. Remember, your reality is what you perceive, how you interpret it, what's happening in and around you, what you perceive, how you interpret it, and what is happening in and around you. So how do you apply this in real life? The first step is this. You've got to believe that reality is flexible. Psychologist Carol Dweck defined 2 different mindsets that people have. And those mindsets are a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset means this is the way I am, this is the way the world is, this is how smart I am, this is what I can do, and I can't change any of it. A growth mindset is this is where I'm at right now, but I can learn. This is my situation, but I can change. This is what I'm capable of doing, but I can get more capabilities. I can increase my skills. The flexibility of reality, the flexibility of your reality, depends on your belief that things can be changed. And here's the second way that you can apply this in real life. You need to take the time and have the ability to kind of pull back away from the immediacy of your situation, to kind of pull back and go, okay, what am I seeing? What am I perceiving? What am I noticing? And then, okay, what are my interpretations? What do I think about that? Why do I think about it that way? I got to tell you, there's a very small percentage of people who ever get to that second, why do I think about it that way? You see, we're raised in our families, most of us, and we're raised with certain ideas and concepts and beliefs. But do we ever wonder why? Why? You know, I wasn't raised in a house of faith. I wasn't raised with people of faith, but I've become a person of faith. And I know why. And I've thought about it. You see, the question, why do I think that way, isn't dangerous necessarily. It's actually freeing because it helps you to understand why you think the way you do and why you do what you do, why you act the way that you do. So the second part of that was to look at your interpretation. What am I seeing? Why do I think about it that way? The third is what's going inside of you. So when you pull back, okay, what am I feeling? What are my opinions about this? And back to why. Why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? And of course, the fourth is, well, what's going on around me? Okay, so step back and go, what are other people doing in this situation? How are other people dealing with this situation? Hey, Misty, thanks for that. The application is, first of all, you got to believe it's flexible. And second, you've got to have the ability to kind of step out of the situation and look at what you're noticing, what your interpretation is, how you're feeling about it. Because if you don't, if this concept doesn't get into your mind, you can't live the life you want to live. You will live your default reality. You'll just go along with your feelings and thoughts, whatever come to your mind, and you'll accept what other people say and do what they tell you to do, or make minor changes but never notice that those minor changes are actual changes in reality, that are simply a glimmering, a spark of the serious changes you can make that affect you and others in such a very positive way. You know, one of my favorite musicals right now is The Greatest Showman. And I love this. I love this musical. I love the songs in it because in this musical, they do such a great job of showing how reality can change. One of the songs in that musical, in that movie, is called "Come Alive." It's called "Come Alive." And part of the lyrics in that song say, when the world becomes a fantasy and you're more than you could ever be. Now I'm going to touch a little bit more on some more lyrics, but when the world becomes a fantasy and you're more than you could ever be. What that's saying is when you stop seeing the world as fixed and static, but you see it as something that can be changed. You see it as something that is malleable from your point of view. When the world becomes a fantasy and you're more than you could ever be because once you see it that way, then you have the ability to become more, to help more people. And here's some more lyrics. Let me finish that. When the world becomes a fantasy and you're more than you could ever be, because you're dreaming with your eyes wide open, you can't go back again to the world you were living in. Once you see it this way, you can't ignore it. Once you see that your reality is changeable, you'll never be the same. And if you don't take steps to change the reality, to improve it for yourself and others, you will be miserable. You'll be miserable. Because you'll have this conflict between what you know could happen and what you're actually doing. And when you're not moving towards what you know could happen to help yourself and others, then it's just going to lead to regret. It's going to lead to regret. So, my friends, I know this one's been long, but I hope that it's been valuable to you. Let me go back to the quote that I gave you. Reality is what you perceive and how you interpret what is happening in and around you. Reality is what you perceive and how you interpret what is happening in and around you. And you can change it. You can change it. Thanks again for watching. Hey, by the way, all my videos find their way over to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Troy Stoneking. If you like this video, hit that like button for me. I'd appreciate it very much. And feel free to share. If there's other people in your life that you think these concepts would be great for them, then share away. I've got this set to public for a reason. I'd appreciate that. If you've got specific comments or thoughts, comment on this video. Send me a private message on Facebook or send me an email to live@troystoneking.com. Thank you again, my friends. Have a wonderful rest of your day.